So I would like to welcome all the Facebook friends, all spiritual seekers, all practitioners of yoga, especially Bhakti Yoga. Welcome everyone. I'm very happy for everyone who is already with us and whoever will still come, maybe later. So this week we have a very, very interesting topic. And this topic is how Bhakti Yoga removes distress. And actually, it is true that Bhakti Yoga is completely capable of removing all distress that we experience in this world. And this is something really, really amazing, because people are looking for all kinds of possibilities, different kinds of ways to at least reduce the pain and distress that they're experiencing in this world, and also trying to remove the distress altogether. But there are very, very few methods that really work, or they work only up to a certain level, so just in a limited way. But Bhakti Yoga is actually this process which has the power to completely eliminate all distress. And this is what I want to speak about now. Why this is so, and how with Bhakti Yoga you can completely end all distress that you are experiencing in your life. So we will start on the basis of book which is called Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or the summary of this book in the book called Nectar of Devotion. And this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a very authentic yoga textbook, which has a very, very scientific explanation of many things in our life, especially regarding the karma and of course, Bhakti Yoga and Bhakti, and how to practice and achieve the ultimate goal of Bhakti. So in this section, we will study one of the beginning verses in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar of Devotion, which actually describes about the suffering in this world and how we can reduce this suffering. Okay, we have a little bit of a technical issue here. Okay, good. So the first thing that I would like to share with you is, and this is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Actually, why, first question that is very important to understand if we want to eliminate our suffering, the first question is, what is the cause of our suffering? Why are we suffering in this world? So we can find the answer in this book of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It says that the cause is threefold. So there are actually three causes to our suffering in this world. So the first cause is papam. So these are words in the Sanskrit. Papam basically refers to a sin or to activity, sinful activity or improper activity, which will cause us suffering. And the definition of this activity of sin is very interesting. The definition of sin is activity which is contradictory to our real nature. This is the definition of sinful activity, meaning that we act contrary to who we really are, contrary to the real truth of our identity and of our real existence. So this is the first source of our suffering. Then the second source of our suffering is bija. And bija refers to the desire. Of course, this is according to the science of yoga textbooks, this is a sinful desire. But here in this world, we don't experience it in this way. Everyone in this world is full of desires, all kinds of desires. And we actually consider them auspicious and beneficial. And we are just trying so hard to fulfill all these desires. But actually from this book, we can learn that these desires are actually the cause of our future suffering. And as we will learn a little further in this class, these desires are already the results of previous bad activities. So they are already the consequence. They are already basically causing us suffering when we experience these desires. And isn't it so? When we have some desires and we are hankering and just wanting so much to achieve whatever, we are so anxious. We are not happy. We are anxious. We are restless. We feel unfulfilled, unhappy, sad. So this is suffering already. But then even greater suffering will come. So these are the two causes of suffering. And the third, which is the main cause of suffering, and we can say this is the original cause of our suffering, this is avidya. And the word avidya means, actually it means ignorance, and it refers to being ignorant of who we really are. Avidya actually refers to our forgetfulness of our real identity, who we really are. And this really is the ultimate cause of all our suffering. Because forgetting our true nature, forgetting our true identity, we have accepted this material body, this material mind, and this material identity, which we have in every life another. And then we act accordingly, trying to gratify this body. And in this way, we get entangled in so many activities which are improper, inauspicious, and which only bring happiness to ourselves and also to other people and other living entities. The entire planet actually suffers because of that. So now we have defined the causes of suffering. So now the question is, how does really Bhakti Yoga remove this suffering? So in order to answer this question, I need to actually explain to you the cycle of suffering, how we actually suffer in this world, and how is this actually a vicious cycle. So basically, normally, people are just caught up in this vicious cycle, and they are just rotating in it all over and over again, and they actually cannot find the way out of it. They just remain in this cycle of suffering. And how does this how is this cycle of suffering? How does it look like? The cycle of suffering is, it starts, as we said before, it starts with the wrong identification. So we have forgotten who we really are, and we have adopted a new identity, which actually refers to this body that we have. And because of our identification with this body, we start to experience different kind of urges and desires to gratify and satisfy this body. And this is where all these desires come about. And then on account of these desires, we are trying to fulfill these desires. And we start acting many times in ways which are improper, which are not according to the law, not only to the law of a particular country, but actually which are against the law of God, because this is a very, very stringent law. And every wrong action brings about just the opposite reaction. This is the law of karma. So we commit wrong activities, bad karma, and then the reactions come. And how do reactions come? The reactions are twofold. One kind of reaction is invisible, which is actually not manifest already, which means like nothing, you know, if I give an example, a person is a thief. So he has this desire, he has to steal. So let's say he really wants to have some really nice jewelry. So he goes into one store and he steals some necklace with beautiful jewels on it. So this is a very sinful act. And then, so the first reaction is invisible. And, you know, apparently nothing happens. He has this necklace and it seems that everything is all right, but it is not all right. It's this sinful reaction, it's already there, but it's just not manifested yet. It will manifest later. Many times this manifests only after a long time, many times even only in the next life. And how does this manifest? This invisible reaction manifests as sinful predisposition. And this is like this person in the next life, when he's even a small child, he will already have this kind of disposition towards stealing. But this is just like a general disposition. And then when this general disposition, the reaction matures even further, it will manifest as a seed, a bijam or bijam, which is a very specific desire. So he will again have this desire. Oh, I have to steal jewels. I want like jewelry. So this is how the material desires then really manifest. It's a result of the unmanifested sinful reaction of a previous bad karma. But this is just one part of the reaction. The second part of the reaction is something that becomes manifest soon, already in this life. And for example, the example here would be that the thief is caught. So somebody saw him and the police started investigating and they caught him and they put him in jail. So this is then the prarabdha, which is the manifested reaction that one has to suffer already now in this life. And so it causes him suffering. But this unmanifested, it seems that is, you know, that it's nothing really, but it is in one sense even more dangerous because it keeps a person perpetually in this same cycle with newer and newer desires to act in the same way. So this is then how this suffering is manifesting in our life. So now if we are going to see how Bhakti removes this suffering, Bhakti, the process of Bhakti, the practice of Bhakti it's more potent than any other spiritual process. Like people, since time immemorial, they know that, there is a need to do something to become free from these sinful activities or from bad karma. So you have all heard that people are either doing some religious activities, they're giving donations, or they're performing different austerities, penances, sacrifices. People are doing all these things to purify themselves of this bad karma, of these sinful reactions. But with these activities, they can purify just a little bit of these sinful reactions. They cannot purify, they cannot remove all the phases of the maturing of these reactions, which leads to suffering. And then we also have the path of Jnana Yoga, or impersonal path of liberation. This is much more potent and can remove definitely to a greater degree the prarabdha karma, but still not completely. It cannot, there is a great difficulty, even people who are on the path of yoga, Jnana Yoga, or even the mystical yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. I mean, I'm speaking about real yogis, not just about people who go to yoga practice, to yoga studio once or twice a week to do some asanas. I'm speaking here about real yogis who live in Himalayas and they have dedicated their whole life. So they definitely purify themselves of bad karma to a great degree, but they still struggle with removing the desire. They are still struggling with removing their desire to a great extent. And even if they succeed in removing that desire, they cannot remove the original source of suffering, which is called avidya, or ignorance of our real spiritual identity. Because the Jnana Yoga and the mystical yoga do not lead a person to this point of revelation or realization. So this is the exceptional value of Bhakti Yoga. Only Bhakti Yoga and no other yoga can reveal to a person his true eternal spiritual identity. And therefore we can say with great confidence that practice of Bhakti Yoga acts just like a fire. It acts just like a fire burns wood to ashes. In the same way, the practice of Bhakti Yoga burns all different reactions of previous activities to ashes. And which are these reactions? We explained aprarabdha, which is invisible. Bhakti, process of Bhakti Yoga removes, burns this reaction. And this reaction is so subtle. It actually shows in a person who is practicing Bhakti Yoga, like sometimes there comes some agitation in the mind, some inability to have control or discipline of the mind or senses. But for one who is diligently practicing Bhakti Yoga, this gets removed, it gets burned into the fire of process of Bhakti Yoga. Then the next stage, which is Prarabdha karma, or karma which is already we are experiencing at present, this is also getting removed. And here the example is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam about people who were born in low families, for example, low born. And in general, in India especially, it's more known that people who are low born, they are not allowed to participate in some Brahminical activities or some sacrifices. But people who start practicing Bhakti Yoga very diligently, and they chant and hear the transcendental sound vibration of the Maha Mantra in a pure way, they immediately become purified of their lower birth. So they immediately become eligible to engage in the activities which are reserved for a higher born, like Brahmanas, people who are on a higher level of consciousness. And then also the bija, that portion of sinful reaction, which is the desires get removed with the practice of Bhakti Yoga. And this is something very, very wonderful and very encouraging for every spiritual practitioner on the path of Bhakti, because everyone who is practicing spiritual life knows that desires for all kinds of material enjoyment and gratification can be really a great disturbance in spiritual life. But by strict practice and by becoming absorbed in the service, in serving the spiritual master, in serving the Supreme Lord, these desires also start disappearing. And gradually they all disappear, one after another. And then also, for a sincere and serious practitioner who he's dedicated his life to this practice, such a person will achieve that point when the knot in the heart becomes cut. And this knot in the heart, it's actually that false identification. This knot in the heart actually binds the soul to this material body through the false identification with the material body. So this knot in the heart becomes cut, and the soul, the person, actually realizes his true identity, and at the same time he also realizes God. So this realization, it's self-realization and God realization at the same time, because one realizes himself, his true nature and his true identity in his loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. So this is something very, very encouraging, very, very wonderful, and very, very inspiring for every single person. So every one of you who is listening to this, if you are looking for relief from this stress, and if you are looking for happiness, this is the real path for you that will bring you the desired result, guaranteed. So now I would just like to see if there is maybe any question, and I will actually check on the Facebook. I have little technical difficulty here. I don't see on the screen on the computer, but let's see. Maybe I can see you here on the another screen on the mobile. If you have any question, any doubt, or any comment, please write it down right now, and I'll be very happy to answer your questions. And I'll just wait like maybe like a minute, just a few seconds. Your questions. Okay. And I'll just wait like maybe like a minute. Just okay. Yeah, I don't see any. So I will just make a little summary of what I just explained. I just explained that Bhakti Yoga brings relief from all kinds of suffering. So the first point that I explained was what are really the causes of distress, and there are threefold. So the first cause of distress is the papam, or the sinful activity. The second is the bijam, or sinful desire. And the third, and the original source or cause of our suffering, is avidya, or the ignorance of our true identity. And then I explained that how actually other processes, even other spiritual practices, do not give relief from all levels of sinful reactions. And before that, I also explained the cycle of suffering, how this suffering is actually unfolding and how it is maturing, and how actually it keeps a person perpetually suffering again and again, life after life. So these other processes are unable to completely free the person from this suffering cycle. But the path of Bhakti Yoga, practice of Bhakti Yoga, is the most powerful practice and gives complete relief from all stages of suffering. So on different levels, of course, it is not that it happens immediately overnight, but one who is a sincere practitioner can definitely experience significant relief of suffering from the very beginning. And then gradually, he can see that the reactions are becoming smaller and smaller. Although from here and there, some reactions are still coming, but these are just the last little remnants of the sinful reactions, which are actually even technically not completely karma, but are just given in order to